Story 1. The Missing Boy and the Ice Effigy. I have a friend in the search and rescue field, someone who has been involved in looking for missing persons, people who, in many cases, are never found. He told me that if a person isn't located quickly, they're either never found at all or they turn up weeks, months, or even years later in places they could not possibly have reached on their own. One story that stuck with me was about a 5-year-old boy. He vanished from a picnic area late in the fall. His parents insisted over and over that he couldn't have wandered far on his own. Someone must have taken him. My friend told me they searched for weeks, even far beyond the area where he could have realistically traveled. But there were no traces of him. Not even the dogs could pick up his scent. Not even at the picnic site where he had disappeared. Naturally, suspicion fell on the parents, but they were clearly devastated, and no evidence pointed to them harming their child. A month later, the search was called off, and as winter set in, people started to forget about the case. Then, toward the end of winter, my friend was out on a training exercise with his team in the snow, high up in the mountains. That's when he spotted something strange in the distance. As he got closer, he realized it was a frozen sweater poking up to the powdery snow. He recognized the pattern immediately. It belonged to the missing boy. About 20 meters away, he found the boy's body, half buried in the snow. But something was horribly wrong. My friend swore the boy could not have been dead for more than 2 or 3 days, yet he had been missing for over 3 months. The child was curled around something, holding it tightly to his chest. When my friend brushed the snow away, he could hardly believe his eyes. It was a large block of ice, carefully carved and chiseled into the shape of a small human figure. The boy had clutched it so tightly that his chest and hands had frostbite. They carried the body down the mountain, but nothing about the situation made sense. There was no way the child could have survived alone for 3 months, nor could it have traveled 80 kilometers across treacherous terrain to reach that godforsaken peak. Even stranger, the medical examination found nothing in the boy's stomach or intestines, not even water. My friend said it was as if someone had taken him out of the world, kept him somewhere for 3 months, and then dropped him back, leaving him to freeze to death. He never really got over it. Story 2. The Blurred Man. There's a veteran in the field who has been doing this for 15 years. I won't reveal anyone's real name, so let's just call her Karen. She specializes in mountain searches and is considered one of the best. I've been on training exercises with her, and she loves sharing stories from her time in the job. One day, I told her I wanted to hear about some of the strangest disappearances she had encountered. She leaned in and asked, "Do you want to hear something truly disturbing?" Then she told me about a case from her early days as a ranger. A family had been out berry picking near the park entrance. They had 2 small boys under 5 years old. At some point during the day, one of the boys vanished. A massive search was launched, but they found nothing. It was one of those cases where it seemed like the child had simply never been there at all. The search continued for 2 months before it was finally called off. Then, 6 months later, the family returned to place flowers at a memorial stone erected in their son's honor. While laying the flowers, they lost sight of their second son for mere seconds. And in that time, he too disappeared. The parents were hysterical. Losing one child was unimaginable. Losing both in the exact same way was beyond comprehension. The second search effort was the largest in state history. Over 300 volunteers combed every inch of the park. And again, there was nothing. 2 weeks later, a radio call came in. A volunteer had found the boy 25 kilometers from the search area. Everyone had assumed he was dead. But not only was he alive, he was completely unharmed. Karen and her team rushed to the site, and when they arrived, they could barely believe what they saw. The boy's clothes were spotless, without a single tear or stain. He looked healthy, well-fed, not all like a child who had been lost in the wilderness for 2 weeks. The volunteer who found him said the boy had been sitting on a log, playing with some sticks tied together with what looked like ancient rope. Karen asked him where he had been and who he had been with. The boy replied, "With a blurred man." Karen frowned. "What do you mean by blurred?" The child described a man who wasn't clear, like when you close your eyes but don't shut them all the way. He said the man had stepped out from between the trees and taken him deeper into the woods. The boy said he had slept inside a hollow tree and that the man had fed him berries. Karen asked if he was scared. The boy shook his head. No, he wasn't mean or scary. Then he hesitated, but I didn't like that he had no eyes. The boy was taken back to base, and a police officer interviewed him. Since Karen was friend with the officer, she later learned what the child had told them. It was the same story. He had lived inside a hollow tree, eating berries, with a blurred man. The man had let him walk around a specific clearing, but whenever he tried to go further, the man became very angry and yelled, despite having no mouth. And then the boy said something that sent chills down Karen's spine. "The blurred man wanted to keep me," he said, "but he let me go because I wasn't the right kind." Karen never found out what that meant. His brother was never seen again. Story 3. Hunger in the Woods. Karen once had her own terrifying experience. During a training exercise in the mountains, she stepped away from her group to relieve herself. She was maybe 40 meters away when it happened. She finished and turned back toward the group, only to realize she had no idea where she was. She wasn't just lost. She had no memory of why she was there, what she was doing, or even what state she was in. "It was like my mind was wiped clean," she said. "The longer I stood there, the worse it got." So she started walking, but the confusion only deepened. Soon, she had no idea why she was in the mountains at all. Then a voice spoke. It wasn't inside her head, but it wasn't entirely external either. It was deep, hoarse, coming from somewhere inside the forest. "It's okay. It's okay. You just need to find something to eat. Find something to eat, and everything will be fine. Just keep walking. Find food. Eat, eat, eat." Karen looked around, desperate for something edible. She swore she had never felt so hungry in her life. Time ceased to exist. She didn't know how long she had been gone. Then another voice, a man's voice. She moved toward it and saw one of the other rangers rushing toward her, looking terrified. "He ran to me," she said, "and the moment I saw him, I realized my hand was gripping the hunting knife on my belt." She hadn't even been aware of it. All she knew was that she had to eat. The man saw what she was doing and backed away, hands raised. "Drop the knife," he shouted. "I won't hurt you, just drop the knife." And just like that, she snapped out of it. Suddenly, she knew where she was. She ran to him, asking how long she had been missing. She expected him to say half an hour. "You've been gone for 2 days, he told her. She had wandered over 2 mountain ridges, nearly 50 miles into the wilderness. If she had kept going, she never would have been found. Karen never walked alone in the woods again.
That's it for tonight's tale. But don't worry, there's always more where that came from. Be sure to stay tuned for even more nerve-thrilling horror stories every single week. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and join us here at the Hollow Horror. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Until then, stay safe. Or stay scared. See you next time.